Minister LeBlanc, over to you.
Merci beaucoup, Mia. Bon après-midi à tout le monde. Merci d'être parmi nous. I'm speaking to you today from Monterrey, Mexico, following 3 days in Mexico City with one of the largest Team Canada trade missions in Canadian history. I had the privilege of leading a delegation of more than 240 business organizations and over 370 business delegates from across Canada. Their objective was to strengthen economic ties, diversify trade, and advance prosperity in Canada and in North America. In Mexico City, my colleagues and I met with President Sheinbaum and several members of her cabinet, where we reviewed progress under the Canada-Mexico Action Plan struck by the Prime Minister and President Sheinbaum during our visit to Mexico last September. We also met with Mexico's Commerce Secretary, Marcelo Ebrard, to discuss the joint review of CUSMA, or TMEC as it's known here in Mexico. Our Mexican counterparts have been the most gracious of hosts, and we want to thank them for their support throughout this big trade mission. À la suite de notre séjour à Mexico, nous avons poursuivi notre mission commerciale ici, où je suis cet après-midi à Monterrey, ainsi qu'à Guadalajara, où se trouvent actuellement mes collègues, le ministre de l'Agriculture, Heath MacDonald, et le secrétaire parlementaire David Myles. Les États de Nuevo León et de Jalisco, où se situent respectivement Monterrey et Guadalajara, sont deux épicentres d'activités manufacturières et plusieurs situent compagnies canadiennes, comme par exemple Magna, BRP, McCain Foods, qui sont solidement établis. Leur présence en sol mexicain témoigne la nature intégrée de nos deux économies et les bénéfices qui découlent du libre-échange nord-américain, tant pour le Canada que pour le Mexique. As Canada looks to double its non-U.S. exports over the next decade, we intend to deepen our economic and people-to-people ties with Mexico. On that score, this Team Canada trade mission has sent a strong message about Canada and Canadian businesses' commitment to establishing an ongoing and lasting presence here in Mexico. Thus far, national business associations and Canadian companies from Quebec, British Columbia, Alberta, and Newfoundland and Labrador have signed 15 commercial partnerships and deals. The hundreds of companies taking part in this trade mission, many of them small and medium-sized businesses, are participating in nearly 1,900 business-to-business meetings with Mexican counterparts. Through these direct connections with prospective clients and partners, companies will get strong support from Canada's Trade Commissioner Service to get their products into Mexico's growing and dynamic market. The Canadian business delegation will be continuing their program over the next couple of days, and there's lots more that took place in Guadalajara. So for more on that, I'm happy to turn it over to my colleague, our Agriculture and Agri-Food Minister, Heath MacDonald, and then Parliamentary Secretary David Myles will speak about creative and cultural industries. Heath.
Thanks, Dominic. Real pleasure to be here, obviously, in Guadalajara. It's the weather is beautiful, by the way, Dominic, but I'm not sure where you are, but I'm certainly appreciative of the people that we're meeting with here, and they certainly appreciate the communication and collaboration that we're seeing between our two countries as of late. And optimism is very high. Expanding our partnerships and building trade relationships in Mexico is a top priority, obviously, for our government, and it will allow us to increase and diversify our exports to this region. Look, agriculture plays a major role in supporting jobs and the economy in both countries, and we have both benefited from highly integrated supply chains leading to efficient markets. We enjoy a complementary agri-food trade relationship that brings both our economies value. Canada exports safe, high-quality products such as grains and meats, while Mexico supplies Canadians with fresh fruits, vegetables, and meat year-round. Agriculture connects farmers, economies, and our people. Agriculture is a fundamental to our economic prosperity, public health, and national sovereignty. It's extremely important that we do everything we can in the geopolitical times we find ourselves in to diversify our trade. It's also not lost on us that the impediments that we see around the world because of those geopolitical issues are allowing us to have more of a vocal and active trade missions like the one we are on today. And it's extremely important. So I'll just leave it there for now and turn it over to David. But what I can say is the optimistic value that we're seeing with all the people that we're meeting here in Guadalajara and Mexico City the last few days has been extremely important, from ministers to deputy ministers to regulatory bodies and to producers, farmers, ranchers, and processors. Thanks.
Thank you, Heath. And it's a real pleasure to be here on behalf of Minister Miller, and it's a great pleasure to be here with Minister LeBlanc, Minister MacDonald. My first trade mission, and it has been a tremendous success. It's been amazing to see and feel the hospitality in Mexico. I think we've all felt that. I think the businesses that are all down here have felt that in their meetings. There's a very, very positive energy and excited about the relationship, building that relationship in the cultural sector. That has been very easy to see. In many business meetings, déjà, on a fait les organisations qui sont ici. Il y a 39 organisations et entreprises culturelles qui sont ici. Ils ont fait 200 rendez-vous à Mexico, dans la ville de Mexique, et 200 à Guadalajara. Donc, quand même, c'est un effort énorme. But it's amazing to watch the energy. Mexico is one of our most significant cultural trading partners, representing $1.6 billion. It's our sixth most important partner, and it is growing year after year, particularly in the audiovisual sector, in the interactive digital media sector, but also in the performing arts. And so we have organizations and businesses here from all of those sectors, and you can tell that they are meeting with people who are interested in what they're doing, and they're properly matched. One of the big things with these trade missions that I've seen is that it's really important that the businesses that are there are matched up with receptive businesses on the other side. And that is very much the case. And it's been a real joy. Obviously, I had the opportunity to speak with the Undersecretary, Dr. Nunez Besvalova. We were able to speak in depth about a number of policy concerns that we shared. And also I was able to have the great pleasure of meeting with these two gentlemen yesterday with the President of Mexico, President Sheinbaum. And it was a real thrill to be able to speak at that table and talk about culture. Mais la relation entre nos deux pays est tellement importante. Et on sait bien que la culture, ils font des liens et des ponts entre des personnes comme il n'y a rien qui fait des ponts comme ça, comme la culture. Donc, je suis vraiment d'accord et je suis vraiment content qu'on est ici, qu'on parle de la culture avec des organisations culturelles ici en Mexique. And it's been a wonderful reception.
Okay. We will move over to questions now. Once again, if you have a question, please use the raised hand function. Everybody will have one question and one follow. We will start with Kelly Malone from the Canadian Press.
Mia, I can't hear the question.
Yeah, it's not allowing me to unmute. Oh, I think now it should.
Are we good?
Work. Yep, you're good, Kelly. Go ahead.
Those are famous COVID words. I think you're on mute.
So Mexico is still negotiating with the United States. Does that put Canada at a disadvantage for the CUSMA review? And what are your counterparts telling you about what to expect there in Mexico?
Mexico is talking to the United States about a whole series of bilateral issues and preparing for the CUSMA review, as is Canada. So there's no surprise and no concern that we have there. I am reassured by the Mexican Economy Secretary, who would be my counterpart in those conversations with the American administration, his desire to work with Canada and to ensure that the review of CUSMA results in a strengthened and an ongoing trilateral trade arrangement. So the Mexicans, as I say, are pursuing some bilateral challenges or issues with the United States. So is Canada. But we both remain absolutely committed to the trilateral free trade agreement and working together as this review process unfolds.
Are you sending a message to the Americans with this Mexico trip, especially ahead of CUSMA talks?
I don't think it should surprise anybody in the United States or elsewhere. We ran an election campaign last spring. The Prime Minister was very clear that we were going to seek to diversify our trading relationships with reliable partners around the world. He personally and my colleagues have advanced that effort very considerably. We've talked about strengthening bilateral trade relations with Mexico. He did that when the Prime Minister was here with President Sheinbaum in September. They signed a comprehensive partnership agreement that talked about prosperity and increasing bilateral trade. And at that news conference with President Sheinbaum, he talked about putting together a Canadian trade mission to Mexico as quickly as possible. So again, this was well known last fall. We wanted to do it before Christmas. It wouldn't have been possible logistically to have the level of participation and the frankly unexpected massive participation of Canadian businesses and business organizations that decided to join us on this trade trip. So it's not surprising. It'll be very beneficial to the Canadian economy and the Canadian businesses. And we're going to do it with other countries around the world as well.
Thank you. I will now go to Pramit Mukherjee from Thomson Reuters.
Well, thank you, Minister, for taking my question. Can you hear my voice properly?
We can hear you.
We can.
Okay, thanks. Minister, I wanted to ask you that how are you coordinating your USMCA strategy with Mexico to avoid being divided in negotiations with Washington?
The Prime Minister and President Sheinbaum, as I noted, signed a comprehensive partnership, which is the highest level of diplomatic engagement. And we committed to working as we always have, but in a renewed sense of engagement with the Mexican government, as we knew that 2026 would bring the review of the CUSMA agreement. The Mexicans have very similar interests to Canada, ensuring that some of the sectoral tariffs that the United States has applied are diminished, are brought down, and that we conclude a review that preserves the framework of prosperity in North America for over 3 decades. If you look at the benefit to the economy of all 3 countries since the NAFTA agreement was signed over 3 decades ago, we both believe that it's in the interest of all 3 countries to maintain and to ensure that agreement continues. So there's no division as between the interest of Mexico and Canada in committing ourselves to the trilateral trade agreement. And we are both having conversations with counterparts in the United States, and will continue to do so over the next number of months.
And second question, has Canada also discussed any contingency planning with Mexico in case the U.S. formally seeks bilateral arrangements?
No, we haven't.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go now to Sandrine Vieira from Le Devoir.
Oui, bonjour, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui, allô Sandrine.
Oui, bonjour Monsieur Leblanc. Même ordre d'idée, mais j'aimerais vous entendre en français surtout. Là. Est-ce que le rapprochement avec le Mexique nous donne, selon vous, un avantage dans le cadre de la révision de la CEUM qui s'en vient? Est-ce que vous pensez que ça nous met dans une meilleure position ou que ça nous donne un quelconque leverage avec les États-Unis? Et si oui, comment?
Merci pour la question. Moi, je pense l'avantage d'approfondir et élargir nos relations économiques avec le Mexique sont directement liés à un objectif du gouvernement canadien, c'est de diversifier nos échanges commerciaux et de diversifier notre commerce avec des partenaires et des pays fiables à travers le monde. Le premier ministre est très actif à cet égard-là. Alors, ça s'encadre très, très bien dans ce contexte-là. Il n'y a pas de doute que l'engagement de M. Carney et du gouvernement de diversifier nos relations commerciales, de bâtir chez nous des grands projets, fait partie d'augmenter notre résilience économique. Je pense que ça ne devra pas surprendre personne. C'était un enjeu essentiel dans l'élection le printemps passé. Cependant, il y a toujours eu une relation économique, culturelle avec le Mexique qui est très important pour le Canada. On a probablement les deux pays vu l'occasion avec cette incertitude des tarifs douaniers, surtout dans certains secteurs, vous les connaissez bien, l'acier, l'aluminium, les automobiles. Pour nous, c'est le bois d'œuvre. On discute régulièrement avec nos vis-à-vis mexicains comment ils approchent ces enjeux-là, comment on peut travailler ensemble, d'avancer l'argument que c'est dans l'intérêt économique des trois pays, y compris les États-Unis, d'avoir une entente de libre-échange, des chaînes d'approvisionnement qui sont de plus en plus intégrées. Moi, j'ai visité une usine aujourd'hui en banlieue de Monterrey, de Magna, des pièces d'automobile. Ils ont 16 000 employés au Mexique. Imaginez-vous comment ces chaînes d'approvisionnement ici au Mexique, comme au Canada et comme aux États-Unis, sont intégrées. C'était pour moi un visuel très important de constater l'importance de préserver cette intégration-là qui sera dans l'intérêt des trois économies.
Mm-hmm. Et est-ce que vous pensez que ce voyage comporte des risques, disons, d'agacer les États-Unis ou que ça influence leur position en vue de la révision de la CEUM?
Moi, je ne pense pas. Les Américains vont pas être surpris qu'on mène une mission commerciale ici. Comme j'ai dit, le premier ministre Carney et la présidente Sheinbaum l'ont annoncé en septembre. Mes vis-à-vis américains n'ont jamais soulevé avec moi des inquiétudes qu'on diversifie nos échanges commerciaux bilatéraux. Mais en même temps, je pense que ceci est aussi vrai en même temps. En même temps, on renforce l'économie nord-américaine. Moi, mes conversations avec les gens d'affaires plutôt aujourd'hui à Monterrey, ils m'ont parlé de l'avantage compétitif d'une économie nord-américaine qui est intégrée de plus en plus depuis une trentaine d'années. Si la compétition, pour nous, c'est des pays, que ce soit la Chine ou d'autres pays, on a tous les intérêts au monde en Amérique du Nord d'avoir l'économie la plus productive qu'on peut construire. Alors, c'est dans l'intérêt économique des Américains aussi qu'il y a un échange commercial en Amérique du Nord plutôt qu'avec d'autres régions du monde.
Merci.
Thank you. We will now go to Xian Lum from Politico.
Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead, Xian.
So this one's for Minister LeBlanc. USTR Jameson Greer was on Fox Business Network last week and accused Canada of pursuing policies that make it difficult to begin a mandatory review of CUSMA on a bilateral basis. So Greer said that there is a variety of issues that Canada isn't addressing, and, quote, this makes it a big challenge and an obstacle for starting real negotiations with them, end quote. So is this an accurate claim? What are some of these issues that he's mentioning that you're aware of?
So thank you for the question. Obviously, I don't speak for the U.S. government. I took note of those comments from Ambassador Greer. After those comments, I had a productive and cordial phone conversation with him. We've agreed to meet. I indicated to him that I was in Mexico this week, but in the next few weeks, we would have a chance to sit down and discuss the CUSMA review. So the U.S. Trade Representative said those comments, but at the same time, we have been doing the work necessary in Canada to prepare for this not surprising review that was built into the agreement 6 years ago. And so have the Mexicans and so have the Americans. So we look forward to those conversations. I think that those conversations can be fruitful. And obviously some of the issues that I assume Ambassador Greer was referring to are some of the issues that the U.S. administration discusses publicly and some of the issues that we were talking to them about for a long time privately.
Thank you. And the USTR's comments kind of suggest that there are preconditions for bilateral trade talks to begin. Your Mexican counterparts team received a list of issues from USTR related to non-tariff barriers to kind of guide their talks. May you confirm if the Canadian side has also received a list of issues from USTR related to non-tariff barriers to do the same?
I don't want to get into the details of what precise exchanges we have had or are having with our American counterparts, other than to say, well, they publicly have a list that they publish. The U.S. Trade Representative's Office publishes a list of the non-tariff barriers that they take note of for every country in the world. So Canada has a lot fewer than many other countries. Our conversations with the Americans deal with some of those issues. But as I say, I'm confident that those concerns, I don't speak for the Mexican government either, they'll work through in the way that they think is appropriate those concerns. I'm absolutely confident that Canada can do the same thing.
Okay, next on the list, we have Marc Rendell from the Globe and Mail.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Marc. Go ahead.
Fantastic. So question for Minister LeBlanc. You mentioned that Mexico and the U.S. and Canada and the U.S. are addressing a number of issues bilaterally and separately, but there are a number of trilateral issues that have been highlighted that are certainly on the USTR's list of things they want to address. Top of those on that list is rules of origin for non-automotive parts, alignment on tariffs, export controls, foreign direct investment screening, those kind of things. How aligned are Canada and Mexico when it comes to these trilateral issues, again, around rules of origin and external tariffs, and where are Canada and Mexico potentially differing on those issues?
So, Marc, thanks for that question. I think it's a good one in the sense you've identified some of the issues that the U.S. Trade Representative has raised publicly as concerns around CUSMA, the Trilateral Trade Agreement. We are, and I've said this to Ambassador Greer and to Secretary Lutnick, we're anxious to sit down with our Mexican counterparts and have those conversations with the United States. I think my impression from our conversations in Mexico City earlier this week with the Economy Secretary, President Sheinbaum, the Foreign Minister, Foreign Secretary was also there. She brought a number of her senior cabinet officials to the meeting, and we had other occasions to interact with them. Maybe my colleague Heath or David want to add something, but I don't think that, at least in a starting point, as we look at the trilateral issues the United States may raise, that Canada and Mexico would not easily find common ground. I'm encouraged by my conversations with the Mexicans, and to be fair with the Americans on some of those issues that you raised, Canada would probably quite easily find common ground with Mexico and the United States. I don't speak for Mexico, but if the United States raises those issues publicly, some of them that you enumerated, we wouldn't necessarily begin the conversation hesitant to try and find the right common ground.
Yeah, Dominic, I might just add, look, from what I'm hearing on the ground in Mexico over the course of this week, a trilateral agreement is most beneficial. We have economies that are integrated immensely. Suffice. That's something that I'm hearing constantly. They want the trilateral, and I think when you look at the economics of this, I think it's very plain to see that it has served all three countries very well.
Just following up on that question about external tariffs, Mexico has been moving in the last 6 months or so to align more closely with what Washington has asked for on tariffs on Chinese goods in particular, but non-FTA goods in general. They have raised tariffs significantly. Canada has broken step, I guess, with Washington, at least when it comes to electric vehicle tariffs. And I'm wondering, to kind of ask the question in a slightly different way, specifically on the question of external tariff alignment, it appears like Mexico is going one direction and aligning more with Washington, and Canada is going another direction and aligning less with Washington. And I'm wondering if you can comment on what certainly appears to be a divergence between Mexico City and Ottawa on their willingness to align with the U.S. on external tariffs.
Again, I don't speak for the government of Mexico or the government of the United States. We, as a federal government in Canada, make decisions that we think are in the interest of the Canadian economy and Canadian workers. So we take note of what decisions our partners make. We're fundamentally committed to a true free trade agreement with the United States and with Mexico. We didn't start a series of sectoral tariffs or reciprocal tariffs last year. We have to take the steps necessary in our judgment to protect Canadian industry and Canadian workers, and the Mexicans make their own decisions for their own economy. But I wouldn't say there's a divergence between Mexico City and Ottawa. What I would say is that we have, in some cases, different economies, different sectoral challenges, and some cases very similar. I met people from the steel industry today in Monterrey. Some of their concerns are not different than steel producers from Canada with whom we meet as well. So there's many issues where there's an obvious common circumstance. Some sectors and some challenges are unique to Mexico or to Canada. And obviously in Canada, the government makes the decisions that we think are in the best interest of protecting the Canadian economy and Canadian workers.
Next on my list, we'll go to Chris Rands from CBC.
Hi, ministers. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead, Chris.
Thanks, Mia. For Minister LeBlanc, Mr. Poilievre is accusing your party of trying to seize majority through, quote, dirty backroom deals. And we're wondering if you have a response to that, please.
I never am ceased to be amazed by the hypocrisy of Mr. Poilievre on these issues. I was a member of Parliament when in Mr. Harper's government they stood and cheered, and I think even made her deputy leader in a Liberal MP crossed the floor to join the Conservatives. He should look in the mirror and ask himself why he's having these challenges in his caucus. It's easy to somehow make up a phrase like backroom deals. He would be the expert in that sort of stuff. If his caucus members choose to leave his caucus, he can explain that. And he also should be able to defend why they celebrated similar decisions at a different time in a different parliament.
Chris, do you have a follow-up?
No, Mia, don't ask him again in case he does. Keep going.
No, it's. I have to go through the unmuting prompt. Thank you for that answer. Could you shed some light on when Mr. Genereux did reach out to the Liberal Party?
I can't. I wasn't involved directly in those conversations. Others may very well have been. And as I say, who reached out to whom and what, I don't have any information on that. I can't comment on that. But I think that Mr. Genereux's decision is good for the people of Edmonton, the people of Alberta, and for Canada. He wants to join our government in some of the priorities that the Prime Minister is aggressively pursuing. That makes our country stronger. It makes our caucus better. Representation from the great province of Alberta is positive for us. So I look forward to working with him.
Unfortunately, that is all of the time that the ministers have today for questions. Thank you very much for joining us. This will conclude today's press conference.
Thanks, Mia. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks.